My name is Jill Duggar, and for a long time, people have asked me one question more than any other. Why did you step back? Why did you choose distance? Today, I'm not here to explain anyone else. I'm here to explain myself because this decision didn't come from anger. It came from honesty. There was a point in my life when I started feeling tired in a way rest couldn't fix. I was showing up. I was doing what was expected. But inside, I felt disconnected from myself. I remember thinking, if I keep going like this, I'm going to lose who I am. That was the moment I realized something had to change. I want to be very clear about this. I did not choose distance because I stopped caring. I did not choose distance to punish anyone. I still love deeply. I still value relationships, but love does not mean unlimited access, and care does not mean constant sacrifice. Distance for me was not rejection. It was protection. I wasn't taught how to set boundaries. I was taught to be agreeable, to stay quiet, to keep going even when something felt wrong. Learning to say, this is too much for me, took time. It took unlearning guilt. It took learning that my feelings mattered too. Setting boundaries didn't make me selfish. It made me honest. My healing didn't happen in public moments. There were no big announcements, no dramatic confrontations. It happened slowly, through therapy, through reflection, through giving myself permission to step back. Healing didn't need noise, it needed space. One of the hardest lessons was understanding this. I could choose myself without abandoning everyone else. I could still be loving without being constantly available. I could still respect my past without living inside it. Choosing myself wasn't an act against others. It was an act for my own well-being. For a long time, I felt like I had to explain every decision. But eventually, I learned something important. Not everyone needs to understand my boundaries for them to be valid. Silence doesn't always mean avoidance. Sometimes it means peace. Distance gave me clarity. It helped me reconnect with my own voice. It helped me trust my instincts again. I stopped measuring my life by approval and started measuring it by peace. And that changed everything. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with the same decision, I want you to know something. You are not a bad person for needing space. You are not weak for protecting your emotional health. Distance doesn't always mean the end of love. Sometimes it's the beginning of self-respect. For a long time, I believe connection meant closeness at all costs. If I was present, available, and agreeable, then I was being loving. But I've learned that real connection isn't about proximity. It's about honesty. I can care deeply and still need space. That realization changed how I see relationships. I used to feel responsible for keeping everything together, for making things smooth, for making others comfortable. Eventually, I understood something important. I don't have to be everything to everyone to be a good person. Letting go of that pressure was one of the most freeing parts of my healing. There was a time when approval felt like safety. If people were okay with me, then I felt okay with myself. Distance helped me break that pattern. I started asking a different question. Do I feel at peace with my choices? That became my new measure. Distance didn't remove discomfort overnight. There were moments when it felt awkward, moments when I questioned myself, but I learned that discomfort doesn't always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means you're growing, and growth isn't always comfortable. Healing didn't move in a straight line for me. Some days felt clear, others felt heavy, but I stopped seeing that as failure. Healing isn't about constant progress. It's about staying honest with yourself through the ups and downs. Not every relationship stayed the same. Some became quieter. Some required more space. And instead of forcing things back to how they were, I allowed them to find a new shape. That acceptance reduced so much tension in my life. I had to rethink what loyalty meant to me. Loyalty isn't self-abandonment. It isn't silence when something hurts. For me, loyalty now means truthfulness, showing up in ways that are sustainable and honest. There was a time when silence felt scary, like I was doing something wrong by not explaining myself. Now, silence feels like rest. Not everything needs to be clarified. Sometimes quiet is exactly what healing needs. Distance helped me hear myself again, my instincts, my limits. I stopped doubting every feeling and started trusting that my inner voice deserved respect. That trust became a foundation for everything else. Familiarity can feel safe. Even when it's unhealthy, choosing peace meant stepping away from what was familiar and toward what felt right. That choice wasn't dramatic. It was steady, intentional, and deeply personal. If there's one thing I hope people understand, it's this: needing distance doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you human. We all have limits, and honoring them is an act of care. Today, I feel more grounded than I used to. Not because everything is perfect, but because my life feels aligned. I chose distance to find clarity. I chose boundaries to protect my peace. And I've learned that sometimes stepping back is how you finally move forward. I've learned that growth doesn't follow one script. What feels right for me may not make sense to someone else. And that doesn't mean either of us is wrong. Accepting that difference helped me release a lot of pressure, the pressure to justify my path. For a long time, I wanted everyone to understand my choices. Eventually, I realized peace doesn't require agreement. It requires honesty. When I stopped chasing understanding, I found space to breathe. There were moments when distance felt uncomfortable, not painful, just unfamiliar. I had to remind myself that discomfort isn't failure. It's often a sign that something new is forming. Staying present through that feeling mattered. I used to feel responsible for other people's emotions, for keeping things smooth, for preventing disappointment. Now I understand that responsibility has limits. I can care without carrying everything. Silence used to feel like avoidance. Now it feels like healing. Not everything needs to be explained in real time. Some things need space to settle. Silence gave me that space. I stopped rushing myself toward resolution. Some clarity only comes with time. Distance allowed time to do its work without forcing answers before they were ready. I don't aim for perfect boundaries. I aim for consistent ones. Consistency creates safety for me and for others, and that steadiness has been grounding. Confidence didn't arrive as certainty. It arrived as calm. I no longer feel the need to defend every decision. I let my life reflect what matters to me. That quiet confidence has been freeing. Distance didn't remove care from my relationships. It refined it. It allowed me to show up with intention instead of obligation. That shift changed everything. Today, I feel steadier. Not because everything is resolved, but because I'm aligned with myself. I chose distance to protect my peace. I chose boundaries to support my growth. And I've learned that healing doesn't need noise. Sometimes it just needs honesty. At some point, I realized I no longer needed permission to grow. I didn't need approval. I didn't need reassurance. Growth became something quiet and internal, something I trusted myself to handle. That was a turning point. I used to believe every relationship needed fixing. Now I understand that some things don't need repair. They need space. Letting go of that responsibility lifted a weight I didn't realize I was carrying. For a long time, my identity felt tied to roles and expectations. Distance helped me ask a deeper question. Who am I? When no one is watching, I didn't rush to answer it. I let the answer go naturally. Not every relationship moves at the same speed. Some slow down, some soften, some become quieter. I stopped forcing them to stay the same, and that brought relief. I once thought strength looked like endurance. Now I see strength in calm decision, in choosing peace over reaction. That kind of strength doesn't draw attention, but it lasts. Peace didn't arrive once and stay forever. It became something I practiced through small, consistent choices. Boundaries weren't a one-time decision. They were a way of living. Distance didn't erase love in my life. It helped me love more honestly, more intentionally. Care didn't disappear. It became healthier. I stopped asking myself when healing would be finished. There was no deadline. Healing unfolded in its own time, and that made it sustainable. Silence once felt uncomfortable. Now it feels spacious. Not everything needs words. Not everything needs resolution right away. That realization brought peace today. I stand in a more honest place, not perfect, not complete, but grounded. Distance helped me get here. Boundaries helped me stay here. And that feels enough. Over time, distance stopped feeling like a decision I had to think about. It became normal, unremarkable, part of my everyday life. And that's when I knew it was working. Healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just settles in quietly. I stopped measuring my life by appearances. I started measuring it by how it felt at the end of the day. Was I tense or calm, drained or grounded? Peace became my compass. I used to feel responsible for fixing things that felt uncomfortable. Now I understand that not everything needs fixing. Some things need time, some things need space, and some things need acceptance. Not everyone understands my choices. Some never will. And I've learned to be okay with that. Understanding is not a requirement for self-respect. The past no longer controls my present. It exists, but it doesn't define me. I can acknowledge where I came from without living there. That balance brought relief. There was no single moment when I knew I was healed. There was just steadiness, less inner conflict, more clarity. That quiet stability meant more to me than any dramatic breakthrough. If there's one thing I hope others hear in my story, it's this: you're allowed to choose yourself calmly. You don't need permission to protect your peace. Distance isn't avoidance. For me, it became emotional maturity, knowing my limits, honoring them without anger. That kind of distance creates healthier connections. This story resonates because it's quiet, because it's honest, because it reflects real growth, not perfection. Many people see themselves here, and that matters. I didn't choose distance to create division. I chose it to create alignment between who I was and who I was becoming. Growth doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like quiet boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to choose peace. There came a point when I realized I couldn't live by expectations anymore. Not because expectations are wrong, but because they weren't aligned with who I was becoming. Choosing alignment meant listening inward instead of constantly looking outward. That choice changed how I lived every day. Peace didn't arrive as excitement. It arrived quietly in calmer mornings, in fewer explanations, in feeling settled inside myself. That quiet peace felt more real than anything loud ever had. I stopped trying to explain my growth. I let my life speak instead. Consistency became my language. Calm became my response. Over time, that spoke louder than words ever could. Boundaries don't have to be harsh. They can be gentle. They can be compassionate. For me, boundaries became a way to stay kind without losing myself. Letting go of guilt didn't mean letting go of care. It meant understanding that caring doesn't require suffering. I can be loving and still protect my emotional well-being. Both can exist together. At some point, self-trust stopped feeling forced. I didn't second guess every feeling anymore. I trusted myself to know what was healthy and what wasn't. That trust brought a deep sense of stability. I stopped comparing my journey to anyone else's. There was no timeline I needed to follow. No version of growth I had to match. My path became my own, and that was enough. Life became simpler, not easier, but clearer. Fewer internal conflicts. Fewer emotional negotiations. Simplicity came from honesty, not from avoiding hard things. Strength no longer meant pushing through everything. It meant staying grounded, knowing when to engage, knowing when to pause, knowing when to step back. Closeness isn't measured by access anymore. It's measured by respect, by how safe I feel being myself, by how honest I can be. That redefinition changed my relationships for the better. Today, peace isn't something I wait for. It's something I choose through boundaries, through honesty, through self-respect. I didn't choose distance to escape my life. I chose it to live it more fully, and that choice continues to guide me forward quietly, steadily, truthfully. That grounded strength felt sustainable. For as long as I can remember, my identity was shaped by roles: daughter, sister, friend, public figure. But over time, I learned that identity is not a fixed label. It evolves with experience, reflection, and intention, and that evolution has given me new compassion for myself. For years, I felt like I had to apologize for needing space, but there came a point where I stopped saying, "I'm sorry," just because others felt uncomfortable. My needs were valid. My peace was valid. And if those things felt difficult for others to understand, that was not my burden to carry. Distance most helped me see that relationships don't all move at the same pace. Some deepen, some shift, some become steady without intensity. Allowing each connection to find its own rhythm helped me have healthier, more sustainable bonds. There was a time when I listened to what others expected of me, but that noise made it hard to hear my own voice. Distance helped quiet the background. And once things were still, I could finally hear what my heart was saying. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage speaks quietly, in steady decisions, in moments of stillness, in choosing peace over reaction. That kind of courage isn't loud, it just persists. I used to believe strength was endurance, but now strength looks different to me. Strength can be softness with a backbone. Strength can be calm confidence. Strength can be knowing when to stay and when to step back. That redefined strength feels empowering. I used to feel like my past was a pull I couldn't escape. But with time, I realized the past doesn't have to define the present. I can honor where I came from without living there. That balance brought a kind of peace I didn't expect. Every day I choose how I want to live, not according to anyone's expectations, not according to old patterns, but with intention. That choice, repeated day after day, became the foundation of how I live now. I never thought of myself as particularly strong. But looking back, strength was always there. It just looked quiet. It looked like showing up every day, like staying honest, like choosing peace even when it felt hard. That strength I can live with. If any of this resonates with you, if you've ever felt torn between and what you should do and what you need, I want you to remember this. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to protect your peace, and you are allowed to grow quietly, gently, and honestly. Your story is yours, and your healing is worth the space. I no longer feel the need to perform my life for anyone. I choose presence instead. Being fully present in my own experiences has mattered more than being seen or understood. That shift brought relief. Rest used to feel undeserved, like I had to earn it. Now I understand that rest is part of health. It's part of balance. Allowing myself to slow down has been one of the kindest choices I've made. I had to let go of old definitions of success. Success is no longer about meeting expectations. It's about living in a way that feels honest and sustainable. That redefinition gave me freedom. I used to explain my healing as if it needed approval. Now I let it exist quietly. Healing doesn't need a script. It doesn't need validation. It just needs space. Joy used to feel complicated. Now I allow it without questioning whether it's deserved. Joy doesn't cancel out responsibility. It doesn't erase the past. It simply reminds me that life can still feel light. Boundaries didn't push people away. They created safety for honest conversations, safety for healthier connections, safety for me to stay grounded. That safety has changed how I relate to the world. I no longer monitor every word or feeling. I trust myself. That trust removed a constant layer of tension I didn't even realize I was carrying. I stopped waiting to feel ready or complete. Life doesn't require perfection. It asks for sincerity, showing up imperfectly, but honestly has been enough. Sometimes I pause and notice the distance between who I was and who I am now. Not with judgment, with gratitude. Growth doesn't erase the past, it reframes it. This isn't an ending, it's a continuation. A life lived with intention, with boundaries, with self-respect. I'm still growing, still learning, and that feels right.